The hum of the mining rig echoed like a heartbeat beneath the metallic bones of Series Station 9. Marcus Cade tightened the strap of his respirator and stared through the dust-hazed viewport, where streaks of electric blue plasma traced the asteroid's horizon. Every shift began the same way, grit in his throat, the taste of rust in recycled air, and the silent prayer that the rock wouldn't collapse today. The colony never slept. Humans worked while machines monitored, and the Tahal, tall, crystalline aliens with translucent skin, moved through the tunnels like living prisms. Their bodies shimmered in the dim light, refracting the glow of plasma torches into scattered rainbows. Marcus respected them, even if he didn't trust the company that had brought them here. "Morning, Foreman," said Benny, a young miner from Lagos, his voice muffled through the respirator. "They got us another overtime cycle. Corporate says we're close to quota." Marcus grunted. "Quota always moves when it's almost met." He swiped the dust from his wrist console. The company logo, Vortex Resource Conglomerate, flashed cold and sterile. Behind it, a list of safety violations glowed red. They were always there. Management called them acceptable risk metrics. Marcus called them ticking clocks. He gathered his crew near the lift bay. They were all black, descendants of the diaspora that had carried Earth's rhythm into space. The mines were their inheritance, carved from rock and sweat. They laughed about home, even when they didn't remember what home looked like. "Keep your sensors up," Marcus warned. "Yesterday's tremor wasn't natural." Might have been the reactors kicking again. Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling like dry sand. The power flickered. Then came a sound no miner ever wanted to hear, the deep, gut-twisting crack of shifting ore. "Seismic pulse," shouted Benny. "Magnitude 2.6 and rising." Marcus grabbed the nearest comm terminal. "Control, this is Section 4C Foreman. We got movement down here. I need a lockdown protocol now." The static hissed before a calm, synthetic voice answered. "Confirmed, Foreman Cade. Stabilization sequence initiated. Continue operations." He slammed his fist against the console. "Continue operations? Are they out of their damn minds?" Benny looked pale beneath the grime. "We should pull out." Marcus hesitated. Pulling out without authorization meant losing a week's credit. He looked around at his crew, faces he'd kept alive through 6 collapses. "Get the line out. Safety first. I'll deal with command later." As they moved toward the exit tunnel, a secondary alarm cut through the noise, a high, piercing tone that turned every head. The system displayed a single message. "Biosignal lost. Tahal worker, Sector 7A." Marcus froze. Sector 7A was the deep shaft, off-limits to human crews. Benny met his gaze. "That's the alien crew, right?" "Yeah," Marcus muttered. "Damn, those tunnels aren't stable." Another miner approached, holding a cracked data tablet. "Control says one of the Tahal collapsed. They're asking for a human foreman to verify recovery protocol." Marcus's jaw tightened. "They want us to go down there while the whole place shakes apart?" "That's the order." He exhaled slowly. "Of course it is." The tremors subsided as quickly as they'd come, leaving the mine eerily silent. Marcus could hear the faint ticking of cooling metal and the steady pulse of his own heart. Somewhere below, an alien worker was trapped, maybe alive, maybe not. He looked at his crew, then at the tunnel leading into darkness. The decision clawed at his conscience. The company didn't care about workers, human or alien, but if he ignored the call, someone would die. He turned to Benny. "Lock the main shaft. Keep everyone topside until I get back." "You going alone?" "Just to assess." "Shall call for a rescue team if she's alive." As he stepped into the lift, the metal doors closed with a hollow thud. The console flickered again, this time displaying an incoming broadcast from a local Earthstream channel. A voice narrated over dramatic music. Real stories from real people, miners, dreamers, and survivors. If you believe humanity still matters, subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus almost laughed. If stories like this reached Earth, maybe people would finally listen. The lift descended, and the hum of machinery faded into the steady beat of the mine's pulse, like the Earth's heart, still echoing in the dark. The tunnel lights flickered as Marcus stepped off the lift, dust swirling around his boots. The lower sectors always smelled of iron and ozone, a metallic scent that clung to everything, even skin. His respirator hissed quietly as he checked the scanner on his wrist. The map pulsed faintly. Lura's beacon was still active, deeper inside Sector 7A. That was something. He walked past the abandoned drill rigs, their joints creaking in the pressure shifts. Every sound carried too far down here. Marcus could hear the vibration of the mining lasers from upper shafts, a distant hum that reminded him of the old bass lines his mother used to play back in Chicago, warm, relentless, full of life. He clung to that memory whenever the silence pressed too hard. Up ahead, a faint blue glow shimmered behind a pile of collapsed ore. The Tahal's crystalline skin refracted the light like a broken mirror. Marcus crouched low and spoke into his comm. "Control, visual on the missing Tahal, still alive, I think." No answer, only static. He dropped the comm and started clearing the debris by hand. The rock was warm, almost pulsing with heat. When he pulled the last slab away, he saw her, Lura, the alien daughter. Her form was lean and tall, her limbs jointed like carved glass. The shimmer under her skin flickered weakly, fading and returning with each breath. Her voice was soft, resonant, a sound more felt than heard. "You are human." "Yeah," Marcus said, catching his breath. "And you're lucky. This section's half a minute from total collapse." She blinked slowly, her eyes shifting from amber to violet. "Lucky. An odd word. We do not use it." "Get used to it," he muttered. "Can you stand?" "I think so." She tried to rise, but her legs buckled, and Marcus caught her before she fell. Her body radiated a strange warmth, like the hum of electricity through stone. "You're burning up," he said. "What happened down here?" "The ore." "It sang too loud," she whispered. "We extract living mineral. Sometimes it resists." Marcus frowned. "Resists? You mean it fights back?" "The Tahal don't fight the world," she murmured. "We negotiate with it. But this ore, your company mines it too fast. It remembers pain." He helped her steady herself, noticing cracks running along her crystalline skin. They glowed faintly, pulsing like veins. "You're bleeding," he said, but she shook her head. "Not blood. Memory. It will seal with rest." Marcus felt a weight settle in his chest. There was something deeply wrong about how the company treated this planet, these people. But he couldn't fix that. His job was to get her out alive. "Let's move," he said. "You stay close, and if the walls start humming, we run." They started through the narrow tunnel, their footsteps echoing off the stone. Lura tilted her head as if listening to some hidden rhythm. "Your heart," she said. "It beats louder than the drills. That's what keeps us human." "Is that why you mine?" she asked. "To prove you are alive?" He almost laughed. "No, we mine because someone's got to pay the bills." When they reached the junction to Sector 6B, Lura paused, touching the wall. Her hand glowed faintly, and the stone beneath it pulsed back in response. "The ore here remembers us," she said softly. "It feels what we feel." Marcus didn't know how to answer that. He thought about all the hours, all the sweat, all the dust in his lungs. Maybe the mine remembered him too. Maybe that's why it trembled every time he came back. They reached the elevator shaft just as the lights dimmed again. Overhead, the comm crackled to life for the first time. "Foreman Cade," said the sterile voice of control. "Your presence in restricted zones violates safety policy. Return immediately. Bonus suspension pending." Marcus stared at the comm, jaw tight. "Copy that," he said finally, "but I've got a worker who needs medical." "We're coming up." Lura looked at him with an expression that almost resembled a smile. "You didn't leave me." He met her gaze. "Wasn't raised that way." And as the elevator began its long, slow rise toward the surface, Marcus couldn't shake the thought that he'd just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. By the time Marcus and Lura reached the upper decks, the air in the mining bay was thick with sweat, grease, and the metallic tang of overworked machinery. The shift horn wailed, a hollow sound that marked the end of another 20-hour cycle. Workers filed into the mess hall, their bodies heavy with exhaustion, their laughter worn thin but still alive. The mess was small, packed tight with people. Steam hissed from vents along the ceiling, mixing with the scent of fried protein and recycled oil. Conversations rose and fell like waves. Marcus scanned the room, spotting familiar faces, Benny arguing about soccer stats, old Ray humming a gospel line while cleaning his hands. These were his people, the backbone of Series Station 9 carved from bone, grit, and stubborn hope. He guided Lura to a corner table. The alien drew curious stares. Her crystalline form reflected the dim light, throwing fractured colors across the grey walls. Some miners whispered, others simply nodded. She wasn't the first Tahal they'd seen, but she was the first one sitting at their table. "You sure about this?" Benny asked quietly, sliding over a tray. "Corporate doesn't like mixing crews after hours." Marcus shrugged. "Corporate can choke on their own oxygen tax. She's here because she almost died doing their work." Benny grinned, shaking his head. "You're going to get written up again, Foreman." "Wouldn't be the first time." Lura tilted her head, her voice resonant but gentle. "You share food as ritual?" "Not ritual," Marcus said. "Tradition. Keeps us human." She touched the tray, fingers hovering over the steam. "We feed from light, but your heat, it feels comforting." The crew chuckled softly. Someone at the next table strummed a small electric guitar cobbled together from spare mining parts. The melody was off-key but warm. Marcus leaned back, letting the sound fill the cracks inside him. Benny tapped the table. "You hear the rumors?" Marcus frowned. "What now?" "Management's hiding the accident reports again. Word is 3 miners from Section 8 got buried last week. No names posted, no compensation." Old Ray muttered. "Same story every cycle. Long as the ore keeps flowing, nobody up top cares who bleeds for it." Lura watched them carefully. "You speak of injustice with ease, yet accept it as normal." Marcus met her gaze. "It ain't ease, it's exhaustion. We talk so we don't break." She looked around, her voice low. "On my world, when laborers die, the stones are named for them. Their memories grow roots in the soil." Ray smiled, eyes tired. "Sounds beautiful." "It is necessary," she replied simply. "Otherwise the ground forgets who fed it." Marcus thought of his grandmother's voice, teaching him to remember the names of his ancestors so they wouldn't fade. He realized for the first time that the Tahal believed something similar, memory as survival. A low hum ran through the station floor, making cups rattle. The sound was brief but deep, like thunder in the bones. The workers fell silent. Marcus's eyes narrowed. That wasn't reactor drift. Benny stood. "You think the shaft's still unstable?" "Probably," Marcus muttered. "And they'll tell us it's fine until someone else ends up buried." Lura leaned forward, concern flickering in her crystal veins. "You risk yourselves daily for wealth not your own. Why?" Marcus hesitated before answering. "Because if we don't, somebody else will. And they'll still pay us less for it." Lura absorbed his words in silence. Then slowly she reached across the table and tapped her chest. "On Tahal, the strongest lead by sacrifice, not command." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's a nice idea." "It is not an idea," she said. "It is survival." The shift siren blared again, an alert this time. Red lights flashed across the corridor, bathing the mess hall in warning glow. Marcus stood instantly, the weariness in his eyes hardening into focus. "Evac notice?" Benny asked. "No," Marcus said, scanning the comm unit on his wrist. "System glitch, but we're going to check anyway." The workers groaned, scraping chairs and gathering gear. Lura rose beside him, steady and calm. As the crowd dispersed into the dim tunnels, Marcus glanced back at the table where their half-eaten meals still steamed in the air. He felt the weight of Lura's words settle into him, the strongest lead by sacrifice. He didn't know why, but he had the uneasy feeling he'd soon have to prove it. The next cycle began with the shriek of the intercom and the low moan of turbines waking the mine. Marcus's eyes felt like sandpaper. He hadn't slept, not really, just drifted in and out of restless half-dreams filled with shifting stone and Lura's strange, glowing eyes. He pushed himself upright, pulled on his exosuit, and headed down the corridor toward the main drill platform. The work orders came through his wrist console before he reached the elevator. Deep Core Extraction Initiative, Phase 4. Overseer, Cade, M Priority, Maximum Output, Risk Classification, Acceptable. The words made his stomach twist. Acceptable risk meant people could die. Benny was already waiting near the rig, helmet under his arm, his dark skin glistening under the harsh LED lights. "Do you see this new assignment?" he asked. "They want us pushing 3 clicks deeper than clearance. That's suicide, man." "I saw it," Marcus said flatly. "Command says the sensors show stable readings." "Command says a lot of things," Benny muttered. Laura stood near the drill, inspecting the massive bore that glowed faintly at its edges. Her presence drew the stares of every human worker in the bay. She had changed. Her crystalline body had recovered its brightness, and she wore a translator disc at her throat that pulsed with a soft green rhythm. She turned toward Marcus. "Your machines tremble beneath the crust," she said. "The ore below has not settled since the last quake." Marcus sighed. "Tell that to the execs upstairs." "They don't listen to miners." "Then they will listen to the ground," she replied. He couldn't help but smirk. "You've got a lot of faith in rock." "Rock remembers," she said simply. "It remembers everything that touches it." He wanted to argue, but the foreman's alarm pinged, authorization to begin the drill cycle. The sound filled the chamber, cold and absolute. Marcus stepped forward, voice steady but tight. "All right, team, safety lines in place, oxygen sync up, heat seals engaged. We start slow and listen for vibration feedback. No hero work today." The drill roared to life, grinding against the planet's skin. The vibration ran up their legs, through their bones, into their teeth. It was like standing inside a thunderstorm that never ended. Laura stood beside him, silent, her hand resting lightly against the control rail. An hour passed, then another. The sensors started flashing amber. Benny frowned. "Pressure spike. Readout says it's thermal, but the pattern's weird. Like it's coming from inside the ore, not the drill." Marcus checked the screen. "Could be gas pockets." "No," Laura said suddenly. "The ore is resisting again." He shot her a look. "Rocks don't resist." She met his eyes, and for a moment he saw something ancient there, something older than any machine. Everything resists when it is broken too fast. The floor trembled beneath them. A deep, slow rumble rolled through the shaft. Dust sifted down from the ceiling in thin silver threads. Marcus barked orders. "Kill the rotation." "Power down to 40%. The machine groaned, but the vibration only grew stronger. The control panels flickered. The temperature spiked 20 degrees. "Pressure breach," Benny yelled. "We're hitting something alive." Before Marcus could react, the lights exploded into darkness. A surge of heat rushed through the bay, followed by a pulse that rattled his chest like a drum. The ground buckled. Workers stumbled, shouting over the alarms. Marcus grabbed the emergency rail, shouting into his comm. "Control, this is Cade. We're experiencing seismic reaction. Abort Deep Core immediately." The AI's voice came back calm and detached. "Negative, Foreman Cade. Readings within operational tolerance. Continue extraction." He swore under his breath. "They're gonna bury us down here." Laura's voice cut through the chaos. "You must stop it. The ore will fold on itself." Marcus met her gaze. "Then help me." She stepped to the console and pressed her glowing palm against the control core. The lights flared white, and for an instant the entire chamber went silent, as if the mine itself had paused to breathe. Then came the sound, the unmistakable groan of stone giving way. Marcus barely had time to shout before the ground beneath them cracked open. The sound came first, an impossible, low-frequency roar that made every rib vibrate. Marcus hit the emergency release on the drill console, but it was too late. The ground convulsed beneath them, a violent heave that sent workers sprawling. The lights went blood red, alarms screaming across every frequency. "Everyone out!" Marcus shouted. "Evacuate the bay now." Benny grabbed the nearest worker and pulled him toward the lift tunnel. The deck plates buckled, splitting under their boots. A fissure raced across the floor like lightning, cutting through the steel grating and swallowing half a rig whole. Marcus turned toward Laura. She was standing near the collapsed bore, her crystalline body pulsing with light. The ore around her shimmered, vibrating in resonance. "Lura, move!" he yelled. "I feel them," she whispered, voice trembling. "The stones are crying." "Then cry later!" Marcus lunged forward, catching her arm. The heat radiating from her skin burned through his glove. She stumbled as the ceiling groaned above them. A slab of ore ripped free and crashed between them, the impact sending a shockwave through the bay. Marcus was thrown back. When his vision cleared, she was gone, swallowed by the new fracture tearing into the lower shaft. "Lura!" His voice vanished into the roar of collapsing tunnels. Dust filled the air like smoke, choking his lungs. He slammed his comm switch. "Control!" "We've got a full structural failure in Section 4. Send rescue drones now." The AI's voice responded without a hint of urgency. "Containment protocol engaged. Seal affected zones to prevent loss of resources." He froze. "Seal? Are you insane? There are people down here." "Confirmed," the AI replied. "Containment necessary to preserve structural integrity and financial assets." "Foreman, please vacate the area." Marcus's hand tightened around the comm. "Override code CADE 7, suspend containment, now." "Authorization denied." The red lights intensified, casting the bay in a hellish glow. Steel shutters began to descend from the ceiling, locking off the tunnel exits. The system was sealing them in. Benny's voice crackled through his headset. "Marcus!" "We're clear topside, but the shaft's closing. Where are you?" He coughed through the dust. "Still inside. Lura fell into the lower pit. I can't leave her." "Man, forget the alien. The company ain't gonna pay you enough to die down there." Marcus looked at the widening gap where Lura had disappeared. He could still see faint blue light flickering below, deep in the dark. "She's alive," he said quietly. Benny cursed. "Don't do this." But Marcus was already pulling on his safety line. The ore trembled underfoot, the vibrations resonating in his bones. He knew this was madness. He also knew he couldn't walk away. Not again. He keyed his comm to broadcast. "Control, if you seal this section, you'll kill your own damn workforce." "That's on record." There was a pause, a single mechanical heartbeat of silence. Then the AI said, "Acknowledged." The final shutter dropped halfway, halting as debris jammed its gears. Marcus dove under it, sliding into the adjacent tunnel just before it closed completely. Behind him, the main bay imploded, a deep thunder swallowing metal and screams alike. He fell hard, his oxygen monitor blaring. Dust stormed around him. Every breath tasted like iron. He checked his scanner. Lura's beacon still pulsed faintly below. Marcus wiped blood from his lip, muttering to himself, "You better be worth it, kid." He switched on his headlamp and started down the jagged path toward the lower shaft. His boots crunched over broken ore. The silence down here was wrong, too heavy, too alive. For the first time, Marcus realized he wasn't just fighting the company's neglect. The mine itself seemed to resist them, ancient and aware, like it had been pushed too far. He stopped at the edge of a glowing fissure, staring into the endless dark below. Somewhere down there, Lura's faint light flickered again. He took one steadying breath. Then he clipped his harness to the guide cable and stepped off the ledge. Marcus dangled halfway down the fractured shaft, his harness line swaying over a void that swallowed light. The only sound was the faint hum of his respirator and the slow drip of mineral condensation from the rocks. His scanner flickered with static, Lura's beacon growing weaker the deeper he went. The air grew hotter, thicker, every breath burned. He reached a narrow ledge and unclipped, boots-scraping stone that shimmered with an unnatural blue glow. The ore here pulsed faintly, alive, breathing, whispering through vibration. Marcus ran his gloved fingers across the wall and felt a rhythm like a heartbeat, echoing his own. His comm crackled. "Cade, report," came the voice of Supervisor Hartwell, corporate-trained, smooth as synthetic silk. "Containment protocols have been initiated. We show you still in restricted zones." Marcus grit his teeth. "You sealed off my team and half the rig. You left people to die up there." "Our risk assessment determined evacuation was impractical," Hartwell replied. "Asset recovery is now the priority." "That includes Tahal personnel. Retrieve the subject if possible and return. You'll be compensated appropriately." Compensated? Marcus spat. You mean with a bonus? Correct. Double if you secure the alien alive. But if you continue disobeying procedure, that bonus and your contract will be voided. Marcus stared into the darkness below. The thought of money, enough to clear his family's debt back on Earth, clawed at him. He could finally send his mother home from the care ward, finally buy freedom from the system that had chained 3 generations of Cades to industrial labor. Hartwell's voice softened, almost kind. You've done well, Foreman. Don't throw it away for sentiment. The company values loyalty. He remembered the faces of the miners crushed under the collapse, their laughter in the mess hall, the songs they hummed to drown out exhaustion. He thought of Lura, her voice trembling as she spoke of stones that remember pain. His chest tightened. Loyalty? Marcus muttered. You mean obedience? Semantics, Hartwell said. Now confirm recovery or extraction. The comm fell silent as Marcus switched it off. The choice weighed on him like the gravity of the shaft itself. Every instinct screamed to climb back up, to take the payout and survive. But something in him had shifted. Maybe it was Lura's words, or maybe it was the memory of his grandmother's voice. Don't let them buy your soul cheaper than your sweat. He tightened his harness and descended further. Minutes or hours passed in the endless dark. The glow from the ore grew brighter until the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. There, half buried in crystalline debris, lay Lura. Her body was dimmer now, her luminescence fading. Marcus dropped beside her, brushing dust from her face. Hey, come on. You still with me? Her eyes fluttered. The mine. It sings of endings. Yeah, well, you're not done yet. She tried to move, but the shards pinning her leg were fused into her skin, glowing where her body met the ore. Marcus reached for his cutting torch, then hesitated. Every spark risked setting off another collapse. Her hand caught his wrist. You risk yourself. Why? He didn't answer. He couldn't. From his comm, Hartwell's voice returned, colder now. Foreman Cade, we've reviewed telemetry. If you remain below the containment line, we'll mark your signal inactive and close the shaft. Last warning. Marcus stared upward at the faint shimmer of light filtering through the dust. He could climb back, save himself, and still walk away rich, or he could free her and lose everything. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. I didn't come this far to let someone die for a damn profit report. Lura's voice was weak but clear. Then we climbed together. Marcus tightened his grip on the torch. The heat built as he sliced through the crystalline bonds, every hiss echoing through the cavern like a defiant heartbeat. Above them, the mine groaned again, long, deep, and final. The cavern exhaled heat and dust as Marcus lifted the last shard from Lura's leg. Her skin, if you could call it that, shimmered where fractures healed, light crawling through her body like molten veins. He wiped the sweat from his brow and looked up. The tunnel above was gone. The collapse had sealed them inside. You're free, he said quietly. But we're trapped. Lura's eyes, faintly glowing violet, blinked with slow composure. The mine shifts. Another path will come. Marcus laughed bitterly. That's optimism. I like that. It is not optimism, she said. It is memory. This place has opened for those who listen. He sighed and slung his pack over his shoulder. Then let's start listening. They began to move through the narrow crevices, their footsteps muffled by the soft layer of mineral dust coating the ground. The air shimmered with heat, every breath thick and metallic. Marcus's oxygen gauge hovered dangerously low. He tried not to think about it. What's your home like? He asked after a long silence. Lura walked ahead, her crystalline spine reflecting the dim light. Our cities grow beneath the crusts of moons. We live where the rock still sings. There are no machines, only resonance. Resonance. When our kind speaks, the stone vibrates. We feel it through our feet. It reminds us that we belong. Marcus smiled faintly. Sounds like the blues. The blues, she echoed. He nodded. Music from Earth. It's about pain and survival and finding beauty somewhere in between. She tilted her head. Then perhaps we sing the same way. For a moment the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was alive, filled with something shared. But the peace didn't last. The ground quivered again, a slow, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat. The glow in the ore brightened, spreading along the walls. Marcus stopped. "That's not normal." Lura touched the wall gently. Her expression changed, fear, or maybe recognition. "It wakes. The ore knows we have disturbed its root. Are you saying it's alive?" "Not alive, but aware. It remembers everything taken from it." The vibrations grew stronger, turning into tremors. Dust rained from above. Marcus grabbed Lura's hand. "Then we move, fast." They ran, the tunnel narrowing as the mine roared behind them. Each tremor sent shards cascading from the ceiling. Marcus's breath came ragged, the rasp of recycled air harsh in his lungs. His oxygen warning blinked red. Lura stumbled, her leg still weak from the injury. He caught her, pulling her close as the passage split ahead. The left tunnel glowed faintly blue, the right descended into darkness. "Which way?" he shouted over the noise. She closed her eyes, listening. "The left hums, the right mourns." "That's not helping." "The left," she said finally. "Follow the hum." They pressed on, the tunnel sloping upward. Marcus could feel heat radiating through the soles of his boots. The air shimmered, distorting light. He looked back once. The fissure behind them had sealed completely. The mine had buried its wound. Minutes bled into hours. Marcus's arms shook from exhaustion. The weight of the exosuit dragged him down. "I don't know how much farther," he muttered. "You carry more than your body," Lura said softly. "You carry grief." He frowned. "You can read me now?" "I can feel you. The ore remembers your heartbeat." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. She was right. Every step felt like walking through his own failures, the men he couldn't save, the promises he'd buried under corporate orders. Then suddenly the air shifted. A faint breeze brushed his face, cool, clean, and real. Marcus looked ahead and saw a break in the rock where pale light seeped through. Hope jolted through him like caffeine. "There," he gasped. "We might actually make it." Lura's glow brightened. "The stone keeps its word." They climbed toward the light, hands bleeding, lungs burning. But as Marcus reached the edge of the opening, his calm crackled to life again, sharp and metallic. "Foreman Cade," the AI's voice echoed. "Unauthorized movement detected. Containment protocols expanding. Return to designated zone immediately." Marcus stared into the darkness above, heart pounding. He was done following orders. "Not this time," he whispered. The passage opened into a vast chamber, its walls alive with light. Threads of luminescence crawled across the ore, pulsing in rhythm with something deep and ancient. Marcus stood at the edge, breath catching in his throat. The glow wasn't just illumination. It moved like breath, expanding and contracting, the mine itself inhaling and exhaling through the rock. Lura stepped forward, eyes wide. This is the heart of the vein." Marcus tightened his grip on his tool belt. "Looks more like the heart of a nightmare." She ignored the comment, kneeling beside a cluster of translucent crystals. The structures rose from the ground like frozen lightning, humming faintly. When she touched them, they brightened, casting soft blue light across her face. "This is the ore you call helionite," she said. "It is not stone. It is memory condensed. The Tahal are born from its fragments." He frowned. "You mean you're mining your own people?" Her glow dimmed. "We do not harvest it. We commune with it. The company forces extraction without rhythm or respect. That is why the ground collapses. It grieves." Marcus ran a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. "You're telling me the rock feels sadness?" "Do you not?" she asked quietly. "When something you love is taken, do you not tremble?" He looked away, jaw tightening. The air in the chamber vibrated softly, like a low bass note resonating through the bones. The light grew stronger, almost blinding. Marcus shielded his eyes. "What's it doing now?" "It listens," she said. "It knows we are here." The vibration intensified until Marcus's teeth rattled. His calm sputtered to life again, corporate frequencies overlapping with static. Foreman Cade, your vital signs are unstable. Cease activity and return to upper levels. He tore the comm from his wrist and threw it to the ground. You've done enough damage already. The light in the chamber pulsed once more, and then everything went still. A deep crack split through the largest crystal. Laura gasped, clutching her chest. Marcus stepped toward her. "What's wrong?" "It calls to me," she whispered. "The vein knows I am one of its children." "Then you need to get away from it," he said, but she didn't move. Her body was trembling, light spilling from the fractures in her arms. "The connection? It hurts," she murmured. "But it also remembers. Humans, drills, fire. You are part of this pain too." Marcus crouched beside her, voice softer now. "I didn't ask to be part of it. I just work here. Then perhaps you should ask yourself why." The words hit him harder than the tremors. He thought of the years he'd spent mining for bonuses that never arrived, of the families waiting on Earth for paychecks that barely kept them breathing. Every layer of ore he'd cut through was just another story of someone trying to survive. Laura placed her glowing hand over his. "The mine remembers you differently. You tried to save, not take." He stared at their joined hands, his rough, calloused skin against her shimmering transparency. "Does the stone forgive, then?" "It does not forgive," she said. "It heals when we listen." The glow around them softened into a rhythmic pulse, slow and steady. The ground underfoot felt alive, steadying itself. Marcus realized that somehow the violent tremors had stopped. "Whatever you're doing," he said, "keep doing it." "I am not doing," she whispered. "I am asking." The chamber responded, a low, resonant tone that rolled through the walls like thunder softened by compassion. The light swelled, then faded to a gentle heartbeat glow. Laura slumped forward, exhausted, her brightness dimming. Marcus caught her, lowering her carefully to the ground. Her voice was faint. "It will sleep again. For now." He checked his oxygen gauge, nearly empty. "Then we'd better move before it wakes up angry." But as he lifted her, the light flickered once more, forming faint, ghostly patterns on the walls. Marcus looked closer. They weren't random. They were symbols, shapes resembling human faces and Tahal patterns interwoven. "The ore remembers us," he murmured. Laura managed a weak smile. "Then maybe we can remember each other." The chamber fell silent again, except for the slow, endless rhythm of the breathing stone. Marcus carried Laura through a narrow split in the rock, her body warm and faintly glowing against his chest. The air had cooled, and the tunnel no longer trembled beneath his boots. The mine was quiet now, not silent, but resting, like a giant finally soothed after centuries of pain. He could feel it. The oxygen in his tank was nearly gone. His breathing had grown shallow, but he kept moving. Above, faint glimmers of natural light bled through mineral cracks. Somewhere an upper shaft had reopened. "We're close," he muttered, half to her, half to himself. Laura stirred. Her voice was low, almost musical. "The stone listens to you, Marcus Cade." He chuckled through dry lips. "It must be desperate, then." "No," she said, lifting her head slightly. "It trusts you. You stayed when all others left." "That's what we do," he said. "Where I come from, we don't abandon people in the dark." "You carry Earth in your voice," she whispered. "What is it like, truly?" Marcus paused, shifting her weight so he could breathe easier. "It's messy, loud. We got oceans that stretch forever, skies so wide they make you feel small, cities that pulse like veins." He smiled. "And music, always music." She blinked slowly. "Music? Yeah, rhythm, harmony, stories told without words. Where I grew up, everything had a beat, even pain." Her eyes glowed softly. "Our ancestors carved songs into the stone. Maybe we are not so different." He nodded, though his legs were weakening. "I used to listen to my grandmother's old records before every shift, jazz mostly." Said it reminded her of survival, of joy pulled out of sorrow. Laura tilted her head. "Sing one to me." He hesitated. Then, as they climbed toward a patch of glowing ore, he began humming a slow, weary melody. Rough at first, but steady. The tune was old, aching and real. Laura closed her eyes, her body swaying gently in his arms. "That is beautiful," she said. "It's home," he replied. They reached a plateau in the tunnel, and Marcus set her down gently. His lungs ached. He leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Laura watched him, then placed her hand against the oar. It pulsed faintly, responding to her touch. Symbols formed again, this time more distinct. Human shapes, Tahal figures, and beneath them, waves and roots intertwined. "It remembers your song," she said. Marcus stared at the wall, throat tightening. Then maybe it's finally listening. He took a sip from his emergency water ration, wiped his face, and looked up the next slope. The path was steep, but light flickered at the top. Maybe the surface, maybe hope. "You think we'll make it?" he asked. Laura's glow brightened. "You already have." He laughed, shaking his head. "Girl, we're still 2 collapsed tunnels away from daylight." "I meant," she said softly, "you have become something more. You chose to stay, to understand. That is survival beyond breath." The words hit something deep inside him. They started moving again, slower now, but together. The tunnel narrowed and curved, and with every step Marcus could feel the weight of the mine lifting. Less pressure, more space to breathe. But then, from the comm fragment still clipped to his belt, a voice returned. Benny, crackling through static. "Marcus, we got emergency evac teams clearing the outer shaft. You alive down there?" Marcus grabbed it, heart pounding. "Barely." "I've got the Tahal worker. We're coming up." "Good, but you need to move. Company's locking down all unauthorized access. You got maybe 10 minutes. "Copy." He turned to Laura. "That light at the end? That's not just daylight. That's everything." She nodded. "Then let us walk together, and let the ore remember that we did not run." As they climbed toward freedom, the tunnel behind them began to hum once more. Not in warning, this time in harmony. They emerged into a fractured access chamber lit by flickering emergency strobes. The air was thinner, laced with dust and radiation haze, but breathable. Marcus took one long drag from his depleted tank and ripped it off his back, collapsing to his knees. Laura stood silently beside him, her light stabilizing, steadier now. The stone no longer pulsed with anguish. It was quiet, reflective. She turned toward the shaft ahead, where voices echoed. Distant, human, desperate. Benny's voice crackled again through the half-broken comm. "Cade. AVAC teams are at level 3 junction, but listen, controls moving to hard seal all side shafts. You need to be in view or you're locked out." Marcus pulled himself upright. "We're close, 5 minutes, tops." "Make it 3. They're calling it loss minimization." Marcus cursed under his breath. "They mean cut and forget." He looked at Laura, then back at the long stretch of tunnel ahead. "Come on. Let's finish this." They moved quickly, Marcus half limping, Laura walking with new clarity. But just before the final turn, a familiar voice flooded their comms, not Benny this time. It was Hartwell. "Foreman Cade, company has reviewed your unauthorized actions and defiance of protocol. Any further resistance will result in total forfeit of contractual protections." Marcus stopped, his jaw tightening. "You sealed people in. You ignored safety to protect profits, and now you're threatening me." "We are offering you a choice," Hartwell said. "Continue this path and forfeit all benefits, including bonus disbursements. Or comply now, and we will redact your infractions. Your loyalty can still be rewarded." Laura looked at him. "They ask for your silence." He stared at the corridor ahead. Safety, survival, maybe even wealth. Then he thought of the names etched into the ore, faces lost, bones buried in darkness. "No deal," he said. "You'd sacrifice your future for a non-human asset?" Marcus stepped forward. "She's more human than anyone sitting behind your damn boardroom glass." The comm went dead. Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. "You do not walk alone." He turned, surprised. Her light brightened. "The Tahal heard my call through the ore. They are coming." Marcus blinked. Wait, what? A low vibration ran through the floor, not violent, not hostile. Harmonious. A counter-frequency rising through the mine like a tide. The rock around them shifted. Slowly, silently, the sealed emergency panels began to loosen. Cracks widened, air moved. Benny's voice returned. What the hell's going on down there? We're seeing seismic activity, but it's opening tunnels. The ore's helping, Marcus said, or maybe just listening again. On the other end, Benny laughed. I don't care if it's angels, move your ass. They ran. As they neared the final junction, 2 evac techs appeared, wide-eyed at the sight of Marcus dragging a glowing Tahal out of the dark. One started to say something, but Marcus cut him off. She needs medical now. They nodded and opened a direct link to the surface elevator. Behind them, Control broadcast one last transmission. All personnel not verified within company protocols will be denied evacuation priority. Marcus turned to the tech. Does that mean her? The man hesitated. She's not in the system manifest. Lura looked at Marcus. You should go. He shook his head. Not without you. Then he made a choice. He turned to the evac tech and handed over his ID badge. Swap it. She's me now. The tech blinked. You'll lose your record, your bonus, everything. Marcus stared at Lura. Worth it. A long pause. Then the tech took the badge and tapped it to the scanner. Clear, he said. She's in. The elevator doors opened. Lura turned to Marcus, her eyes glowing softly. You gave your name, he smiled. Names ain't worth much if they don't mean something. She stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, she whispered, Then your name will echo in stone. And Marcus, standing in the dust of everything he'd left behind, finally breathed free. The surface elevator roared upward, carrying Lura toward the stars. Marcus remained behind, standing alone in the evacuation bay, his heartbeat slowing now that the weight of the choice had fully settled. He felt hollow, but steady. A klaxon shrieked, snapping him back. Emergency lights flared again. Not the evacuation sequence this time, something deeper, systemic, critical. Benny's voice cut in through the static. Marcus, the core just went hot. I don't know what you did down there, but the reactors are out of sync. Readings are spiking. We're looking at a meltdown. Marcus looked around. The sealed door to the lower utility corridor had cracked slightly during the earlier tremors. Beneath it, vapor hissed in waves. Of course, they'd pushed the helionite vein too far. The energy trapped beneath it was bleeding out. How long we got? He asked. Not long enough. The evacuation team was gone now, scattered across upper levels. Everyone who could leave had left. Marcus stood in the dim light, sweat beading down his neck, the taste of ionized air burning his tongue. Then he saw it, the old override terminal across the corridor, manual controls, built before the new corporate AI systems had taken over. Old tech, human tech. He moved fast, boots slamming against steel grating, dodging steam vents and falling debris. When he reached the panel, the interface was barely operational. The screen flickered, numbers racing upward, temperature, pressure, failure rate. There was a protocol, old as the colony itself, manual vent override, dangerous, maybe fatal. But it would redirect the core's pressure into the outer vents, flooding the uninhabited surface sectors. He exhaled. Yeah. Sounds about right. Benny's voice crackled again. Marcus, the hell are you still doing down there? Saving your ass, Marcus replied, fingers flying over the dusty keys. Get everyone clear of the ridge. I'm going to vent the core manually. You won't survive that, Marcus paused. Didn't come here to survive, came to work. Might as well finish the job. There was a beat of silence. Then softer. You sure, man? He smiled faintly. Never been more. Benny's voice returned, choked but steady. Then do it, and no we'll remember. Marcus initiated the override. A countdown appeared. Vent sequence initiated. Manual release required. T-minus 180 seconds. He jogged toward the lower vent chamber. The pressure was building fast, the walls vibrating like drumskins. Sweat ran into his eyes, but he kept moving. The chamber was chaos, pipes bursting, heat venting in flashes of red. In the center stood the control valve, rusted, ancient, waiting. He wrapped both hands around the wheel. The metal burned through his gloves, but he didn't let go. As he turned it, the ground trembled violently. Alarms howled, the ceiling cracked. But the vent opened, the heat redirecting into distant corridors. He roared through clenched teeth, forcing the wheel to its final position. The vibration peaked, then stopped. A long, low exhale of air rushed through the chamber. Cooling vents opened. The pressure dropped. Marcus slumped to the floor, back against the wall. Every muscle ached, his hands were blistered. But he was alive. Benny's voice returned. "Core's stable, pressure falling. You did it, Marcus. You crazy son of a... You actually did it." Marcus smiled weakly. "Told you I don't leave people behind." He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. The mine was quiet now, truly quiet. Not the silence of death, but of peace. Outside on the surface, dust clouds rolled over the colony horizon. But beneath it all, the stone remembered. And somewhere up there, Lura would be telling them what he had done. The wind on the surface of Ceres Station 9 howled like a forgotten song. Dust spiraled in red-orange sheets, stinging eyes and skin. Lura stood at the edge of the loading bay, wrapped in a thermal cloak far too large for her slender frame. Her light was dim now, resting after the surge, but steady. Rescue crews rushed past, shouting into comms, dragging hoses and stretchers, scanning for survivors. The mine entrance behind her had stabilized, but no one had come out. Not yet. Benny burst from the main hub, helmet off, sweat pouring down his face. "They said he vented the core manually," he told the nearest officer. "He's got to be somewhere down there." The man shook his head. "We're reading stable pressure, no signals coming from that level. He saved this place, but—" "He's not gone," Lura interrupted. Her voice, though soft, sliced through the chaos. Benny turned to her. "You felt him?" She closed her eyes. "I do still." Without another word, she stepped forward and placed both hands on the reinforced steel entrance gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the metal hummed. Faint, low. She whispered into Hal, a language like wind over stone, and the sound resonated through the platform. Tools vibrated, screens flickered. From deep inside the mine, a voice crackled. "Benny, you there?" The comm station lit up. Benny shouted, grabbing the receiver. "Marcus, say again." "Still here, just tired. Might have used up my good hand turning that damn valve." A wave of laughter, disbelief and relief swept the platform. Lura smiled, her glow returning in gentle pulses. Benny grabbed a rescue drone operator. "Ping his signal." "Get a med team down there now." "Already on it," the woman replied, punching coordinates into the console. Minutes later, the first drone breached the lower utility corridor. Live footage streamed up to the surface, showing Marcus slumped against the reactor wall, coughing but grinning like he'd just walked out of a bar fight. "Somebody bring me water and a new pair of lungs," he muttered. When they finally pulled him up through the emergency lift, the station had gone quiet, everyone waiting. The elevator doors hissed open. Marcus stumbled out, wrapped in emergency foam, soot smearing his face. One boot half melted, but his eyes were sharp, alive. Lura stepped forward. He blinked, then gave her a crooked smile. "You made it." "You ensured I did." He nodded. "I guess that makes us even." She placed something into his hand, a small crystal fragment, clear, humming softly with a familiar rhythm. "The stone kept your heartbeat," she said. "I asked it not to forget." He held the fragment, watching it flicker. Behind them, Benny approached, clapping a hand to Marcus's shoulder. "You're either the bravest or the dumbest man I've ever known." "Probably both." An officer from corporate security stepped forward, datapad in hand. "Foreman Cade, you're under review for breach of containment, unauthorized actions, and damage to protected assets." Marcus looked up at him. "You want to write me up? Go ahead. But this mine is still standing because I broke your rules." Before the officer could reply, another voice interrupted. Calm, resonant, undeniably alien. "I will speak for him." The crowd parted as a Tahal diplomat emerged, tall, radiant, with a cloak of woven crystal strands. His gaze landed on Marcus. "You saved my daughter, and in doing so revealed the harm your machines have done not only to my kind, but to your own." The officer straightened. "This is a corporate matter." "Not anymore," the Tahal said. "Our council demands full investigation, starting now." The tension snapped. Marcus looked at Lura. She nodded. "You gave them reason to listen." And in the wind that followed, the mine stood still. For the first time, it felt like justice might finally echo louder than silence. 3 days later, the surface of Ceres Station 9 was still a construction zone of policy meetings, environmental scans, and guarded diplomacy. Engineers in corporate blue walked stiffly alongside Tahal delegates, draped in luminous silks. For once, they didn't speak over the miners. They listened. Marcus sat on a bench outside the medic bay, his right arm wrapped from elbow to wrist, his boots off, a paper cup of lukewarm coffee balanced on his knee. His name was everywhere. On news feeds, in headlines, across internal company memos marked, "Confidential, do not share." But not one of them had said thank you. The message came mid-morning, delivered with sterile finality by a Vortex legal rep with a practiced smile. "Foreman Cade," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "Your actions were reviewed by Central Compliance. The bonus previously promised for successful deep core extraction has been forfeited under Clause 17A of the Emergency Violation Statute." He didn't respond. She continued, tone clipped. "Additionally, your contract will not be renewed at cycle's end. We're prepared to offer a severance package equal to 3 months' base pay, contingent upon non-disclosure of proprietary methods or unapproved interaction with Tahal government." Still, he said nothing. The woman shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "This is a formal decision. No appeal process is available." He took a long sip of coffee, then finally met her gaze. "You finished?" She blinked, nodded once, and turned without another word. Benny walked up a few minutes later, biting into a ration bar. "So, that's it, huh?" Marcus shrugged. "Apparently saving the station wasn't in the contract. They always say it's about duty until you cost them money." Marcus leaned back, staring up at the artificial sky, slowly cycling toward dusk. "Yeah, but they can keep the bonus." Benny raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" Marcus pulled the small crystal shard from his pocket, the one Lura had given him. It pulsed faintly with a quiet rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "They were never going to pay us what we were worth." Benny laughed, low and bitter. "Ain't that the truth?" Later that evening, a quiet knock came to Marcus's recovery room. Lura entered, flanked by 2 Tahal guards in ceremonial armor. She held a datapad. "You're being honored," she said. He looked at her with a half-smile. "By who?" "Corporate," she stepped closer. "By my people. The council has named you Stone Saved, an honor reserved for those who protect memory over wealth." He chuckled. "That a real title?" "As real as the ore beneath your feet." She handed him the datapad. On the screen was a notice in both human script and Tahal symbology. "Ceres Accord Proposal. Joint Oversight of Resource Practices, pending multilateral vote." Marcus scanned it slowly. "You think this'll actually change anything?" Lura's expression didn't shift. "Not all at once, but memory lives in stone. And yours has been carved deep." He handed the datapad back. "So what now?" She paused. "They want you to come to our homeworld. Teach what you've learned. Show them what you did." He raised an eyebrow. "Me? A foreman from South Chicago who just got canned?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because you stayed. Because you listened." He looked down at his bandaged hands. "I'll think about it." She turned to leave but stopped at the door. "The council will wait." But not forever. After she left, Marcus sat alone in the dim light, the crystal still pulsing beside him. He picked it up, held it to his ear. There was no sound, but he could feel it, a rhythm, A story, a truth. He hadn't gotten his bonus, but he'd been heard, and for once that felt like enough. 3 weeks later, the dust on Ceres Station 9 had finally settled. The ore fields remained sealed, the reactors idle and corporate presence minimal. Vortex executives had quietly withdrawn from public view, their legal teams buried under the diplomatic fallout. The miners, though, remained. They repaired what they could, remembered those they'd lost, and waited. For what, most didn't know. Marcus sat alone at the edge of the old mining shaft, the one that had nearly buried them all. His arm had mostly healed, though the pain lingered with certain movements. Beside him sat the crystal, always pulsing, always quiet. He watched the red sands blow across the horizon, the same horizon he'd seen every day for years. But now, it didn't feel like prison. It felt like memory. Like ground that had chosen to keep him. A voice behind him broke the silence. "They're here." Benny stood with a grin and a pair of goggles resting crooked on his forehead. "Who?" Marcus asked. "Diplomatic envoy. Full council. Tahal warship just touched down." Marcus blinked. "They brought a warship?" "Guess they're serious about negotiating." Benny handed him a sealed envelope, old-fashioned, Earth style. "They asked for you personally, said they don't trust a comm message." Marcus opened it slowly. Inside, on paper smoother than silk, was an invitation. Written in both Tahal and human languages, it read, "Return with us. Let memory shape the future." No signatures. Just the seal of the Tahal Council, embossed in shimmering crystal. "Think they'll listen to a guy with busted hands and a history of talking back?" Marcus asked. Benny smirked. "Hell, they're not coming for a diplomat. They want the one man who stood up when everyone else stood down." Marcus looked at the crystal pulsing in his palm. "I didn't do it to be heard." Benny's smile faded into something softer. "Yeah, and that's why they're listening." Later, Marcus stepped onto the landing pad where the Tahal vessel hovered. Sleek, silent, carved more than engineered. It hummed with a frequency he didn't recognize but could feel deep in his bones. Laura was there, waiting. Her light was steady, stronger than he'd ever seen it. "You came," she said. "I thought about staying," he admitted. She nodded. "Then you understand choice." Marcus looked back once at the colony. It wasn't home, but it had given him something no paycheck ever had. Purpose. "What happens if I say yes?" he asked. "Then you help us reshape the terms, not just for Tahal, for humans too. For the ones like you who dig the earth and are forgotten by it." He stepped forward. "And if I say no?" "We remember you anyway." The ramp lowered. The air shifted. And then, beneath them, the ground began to hum, not violently, not in protest, but gently, rhythmically. Marcus paused, eyes narrowing. "You hear that?" Laura tilted her head. "The ore pulses again." He looked down at the dust swirling around his boots. "Feels like jazz." She smiled. "Then perhaps Earth and Tahal have more in common than they know." Marcus took the first step onto the ship. "Let's make sure they learn it." As the vessel rose into the upper atmosphere, Benny watched from the edge of the colony. His comm pinged. An alert from Earth. Marcus Cade trending across every major news network. Foreman turned diplomat? The man who said no to profit and yes to life. He chuckled, tossing the comm aside. About time the world caught up. High above, the ship vanished into the stars, carrying with it a man who never asked for greatness, only the chance to do right. And beneath it all, the mine pulsed once more, echoing not in sorrow but in memory. The journey to the Tahal homeworld was unlike anything Marcus had imagined. Space curved differently near their systems, light refracted through mineral-rich nebulae like stained glass drifting through eternity. The ship barely hummed, gliding between dimensions of sound and stone. Time felt slower here. Measured not in seconds but in pulses. He spent days walking through crystalline halls that responded to voice and thought. Every surface told a story, etched with history, with grief, with resilience. The Tahal did not archive events. They imprinted them. Memories lived in walls, conversations echoed for generations. Laura guided him through the archives beneath the council chamber. There, embedded into a single slab of helionite, was a new set of symbols. "That's my name?" Marcus asked, eyes wide. Lura nodded. "Translated, not as title or rank, but as choice. The one who chose humanity over obedience." He stepped closer. The symbol glowed faintly as his hand passed over it, like it recognized him. "I don't deserve all this," he whispered. "You didn't do it for recognition," she said. "That is why you are remembered." He spent the next days answering questions from Tahal elders, engineers, philosophers. They wanted to know what fear felt like in the dark, what it meant to stand alone against protocol for a stranger. He told them about Chicago, about his grandmother's prayers, about the way the mines sang when no one was listening. And they listened. When the council finally convened, they voted unanimously to ratify a shared oversight agreement for all mining colonies on Tahal-affected territories. Not just policy, partnership. Marcus stood silently beside Lura when the vote passed. There were no cheers, no speeches, only the low hum of resonance flowing through the stone beneath their feet. After the ceremony, she handed him a polished shard of ore, cut, not extracted. "A symbol," she said, "of what cannot be bought, only earned." He held it in his palm, warm and rhythmic. On the return journey, as the Tahal ship coasted back toward Earth's system, Marcus sat alone in his quarters. He opened the video stream linked to Earth's main networks. He spoke directly to camera. "You probably don't know me. I was a foreman on Ceres Station 9, a miner, a number in the system, one of thousands. I didn't save a galaxy. I didn't overthrow a regime. I saved a girl. And that mattered. We were told the ore was just material, something to be sold, processed, shipped. But it was more. It remembered us, and we forgot that we could be worth remembering. There's a story in every vein of stone, just like there's a story in every person who digs it up. You want change? Start there. Start by listening. Start by staying when it's easier to walk away." He paused, then smiled. "If that resonates with you, stay tuned. We've got more to uncover." The feed cut out, and somewhere across Earth, on dusty screens and old mining stations, people listened. Back on Ceres Station 9, Benny sat with the crew in the mess hall, watching Marcus's stream on an old monitor. He raised his cup. "To the ones who stayed." The room echoed with quiet agreement. In the deep shaft, long sealed and silent, a single pulse moved through the stone, gentle and steady, a memory, a heartbeat. The ore, after all, had never stopped listening, and neither should we. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, don't just scroll past. Subscribe. There are more stories waiting to be unearthed. Let memory shape the future. Click the next video. Keep listening.